Let's start with your background. You're Blackfoot from the Piikani First Nation. Tell us a bit about yourself growing up in Piikani and the education you received to, get where you are today.
My name is Cindy Provost, and yes, I actually grew up down on the Piikani Reserve. Spent all of my life down in Piikani, and I know this is kind of strange in today's day and age, but I actually went to school at St. Mike's High School in Pinch Creek, Alberta, and spent all of my from grade 1 to grade 12 all at St. Michael's, and the same group I entered into grade 1. I also graduated with them, and obviously later in grade 12. So it was an awesome experience. From there, I actually went into the BA program at University of Lethbridge, and unfortunately did not complete my school. I was actually fortunate to be successful in 2 of my policing applications, one with RCMP back in 1996 and one with Calgary Police Service, and was fortunate to be successful with Calgary Police Service.
How did you originally get, involved with RCMP and CPS?
So originally, back in 1996, I was going through some issues in relation to domestic violence, and I was married at the time, and it was I was actually experiencing a lot of drastic changes in 1996, and I fell into a survival type of mentality. So I actually had put in the first application with RCMP and was very successful going through their process, and actually made it through their entire process. What actually slowed my application down was their policy at the time, where I had surgery on my eyes so that I could meet the qualifications and requirements. And their policy at that time was that I had to wait to see how the 1 year to see how the eyes adjusted. And at the same time, Calgary Police Service, I was actually a summer student working under Dr. Reg Crowshoe from the Cultural Center back in Piikani, and they had found out that I was an applicant with RCMP, and it was actually Chief Christine Silverberg at the time came down with her own application, and while the class was doing some of their cultural awareness training and learning in one TP, back home on the cultural awareness camp, I was in the other TP where we were storing food and some of the learning items for the justice camp. I was in that TP transferring all the information from my RCMP file onto my Calgary Police Service file, and less than 3 months I was hired by Calgary Police Service.
You've received many awards throughout your lifetime. Can you give us a quick glimpse into some of those awards and what they mean to you? The
awards that I actually received, I'll actually start from I guess the most recent ones, and involved the Calgary Police Commission Community Policing Award that was awarded in 2016, and this was really meaningful to me in that the long-standing investment, trust, confidence with the Indigenous community, and the service actually spans from 1979 to today, and it was just an awesome experience to have those community people, those organizations in the room to witness their own investment, and just at the role we had been able to establish a lot of procedures and ways of doing things that was invested. It made sense, and it was community driven. So that was just a mutual celebration. I received most recently the President's Certificate of Achievement from the then president of Calgary Stampede, Bill Gray, in 2016. Again, very meaningful. That's issued to long-standing Calgary Stampede volunteers for acknowledgement and recognition of their work and investment over the years. I was awarded, I along with several other ladies were awarded our service medal, our service award for the work and investment with the First Nations Women's Economic Security Council. That was a voluntary board for service from 2013 to 2016. In 2014, I received the Chief David Crowchild Memorial Award here in the City of Calgary that is nominated from the community, again, based on just the level of community work, community spirit, making Calgary the best place to live and work and dream and have hope, and just that safe place for everybody to celebrate each other. That was actually really meaningful to myself as well. And one of the ones that means the most to myself in my service as a police officer is the Chief's Life-Saving Award that my partner and I were awarded in 2004, just for attending to a call where we actually saved a man's life.
Cindy, do you consider yourself a role model for young Indigenous people?
I consider myself a role model, and I'm actually very honored to be sitting in this place of influence. This is actually the culmination of a lot of different people coming together and exploring where we intersect and how we can actually best contribute back to the community. I've received so many role models in my own lifetime that come from both my culture, that come from my police officers, my peers, to the community and the investment. And a lot of these people some of my role models are actually younger people that I've had the opportunity to learn from as well. And just working together to see something that's bigger than all of us and to create those culturally safe spaces.
Who's been a role model in your life for you?
So one of my role models is actually I'll start with the one that's most important to myself. That's actually the former Chief Rick Hansen of the Calgary Police Service, the most recent former chief. He actually invested and took a chance with this little girl from southern Alberta and this Piikani Reserve. And he was able, together, I think we were able to see something that was more important than both of us, and that was actually to invest in young people, invest in youth, and to provide them with all of those opportunities that they require to know that they are meant to be here, that they're celebrated while they're here, and that they have an opportunity.
You know, I can feel the emotion in your voice when you're talking about the former chief. He must have been a big part of your life.
Yes, he was, very much so. The vision that this individual had to look at understanding that these young people who may be in crisis, and these young people that, are living in times where it's very challenging, but they're entitled to have hopes. They're entitled to have dreams. They're entitled to have food in the fridge. They're entitled to know that they're safe, both inside their home and when they leave to schools or to work, if that's the case. For this individual to see and understand all of those areas that these young people are entitled to today as part of who they are, as part of their dignity and respect and their human rights, and to then go out and have others invest in this vision from the community, and then to build, something that's police-driven, so that we can look at really being those pillars in the community that are investing in these kids before, the choices and before the lifestyle is so challenging to them that they feel that they have no choice. This was a vision that started about almost 10 years ago. And it's something that I believe in my heart that after 9 years of all of that investment, all of those anecdotal stories, all of the clinical and scientific information, the crime reduction statistics that we've been able to have to actually start morally and ethically to share what we've learned with the Indigenous community that needs it so much right now, to need that additional support, to see what a higher level of community investment looks like. Yeah, he's been very meaningful to me.
In addition to having a long-standing career with the with police agencies, RCMP and CPS, you're also part of the Calgary Stampede Board of Directors. I believe you're going on your 7th year now. How did you initially get on board with the Calgary Stampede?
Thank you for that question. The initial I was actually engaged with Stampede long before I became an official volunteer in 2010. I was actually, as part of my job and performance duties from the Calgary Police Service, we actually have had a relationship, and we've been actually in the village, I believe, since the early 2000s as well. We actually have our own Calgary Police Service TP that's actually and considered an invited guest into the village. And so it was that time, just in the operation of my duties since 2006, that I was, really directly involved with Stampede. And then from there, it just made sense to become an official volunteer. And both organizations, it made sense with both organizations. So that's how we had moved forward. And over the years, it's just been becoming a part of the not only the village family that celebrates and acknowledges the Treaty 7 culture, but also the opportunity with Calgary Stampede to learn all about every one of the programs and all of the volunteers, the community spirit, the investment into the community and the youth. It's been an awesome experience. What's been the biggest highlight for you as a board member with the Stampede? In addition to all of my learning right now, what I can say is the investment into the community and the year-round programming that's being invested as we speak, and then to really offer that year-round learning and celebration makes the most sense, especially aligning with the work of the work with my Calgary Police Service as well, in relation to again sharing what we've learned, especially from our youth programs and youth programming, and to actually share and align that with creating that sacred space that's celebrated for all of youth, in addition to the Indigenous youth that will be coming on park. For those that have never been to the Stampede, Cindy, what is Indian Village, and tell us some of the events that happened during the Stampede with it. So Indian Village, that was actually a concept by the original vision from Guy Wiedek, starting in 1912, and at the time, the village was a concept where they were going to celebrate, because at the time they had thought that the culture of the local tribes of Treaty 7 were going to become extinct, and so they wanted an opportunity to showcase that lifestyle. What they didn't, and I don't think what they fully realized was they became that safe haven for my ancestors back in those days, because that was during the height of a whole assimilation policy and policy that was going on in the country. And so my ancestors were actually able to leave the reserves for more than 3 days. They were actually able to come and celebrate who they were and speak the language, which was huge. And so originally, my personal opinion was that it actually saved who we were as people, had a big contribution into saving who we were as people back in those early years. And the it's become almost like a sacred vow where the TP owners and their families continue to come to this safe place in the city to actually showcase the best parts of who we are. And some of those best parts of who we are is the ability to actually share things like TP demonstrations, the food, having our own youth participate in what we call the interpretive program, where they welcome the international guests, the national guests, etc., to have this once-in-a-lifetime experience. Some of the dancing is showcased, some of the storytelling is showcased as well, and just to provide that guest with a unique experience, again, celebrating and showcasing the best parts of who we are.
Finally, do you have any advice for young Indigenous people that might help, realize their dreams?
Just understand that there's a lot of people, both from your own communities and the broader communities, that are out here to lend that willing hand to help in success, and never to turn away when help is offered to you. And also, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's many great organizations. There's many great people attached to those organizations that are so willing to offer that help, offer that wraparound support, and to actually offer those, I call them surrogate safe places as well, if need be. And the youth and others, they just need to understand that those resources and opportunities exist. And if the parents or caregivers are interested in learning not only the resources, but what help is available out there too, those questions are always welcome.